Welcome everyone tonight. Welcome everyone to tonight's insightful episode of Cat Chat. I'm your co-host Sherman Hardy, and I'm joined by our co-host Donna Goodman. Donna Goodman, who isn't here tonight, Levon Reedy Thomas, Derek Holmesley, and Tanya Wakefield. We are thrilled to have Delegate Denny Taveras tonight joining us as we discuss the critical topic of school defunding. As education remains the cornerstone of our society, allocation of resources and potential solutions surrounding this pressing issue. Later in the program, we'll have an exciting segment lined up, a debate featuring District 5 School Board Soul of the War. Stay tuned for a lively exchange of ideas and views as we navigate the future of our education systems together.
Thank
Tanya?
you, Chairman, and thank you, Delegate Taveras, for joining us. With the General Assembly concluding, and there were two bills, of course, that were close to our heart that you agreed to come and speak on for us. And we just have a couple questions, but first, before we have any questions, let me first give you the floor to see if you have anything that you would like to say before we ask our
Well, actually,
questions.
before we get there, I really wanted to play one of the videos that we had
Okay, yeah,
prepared.
let's go. Let's do that.
No problem.
My question is with regards to, I understand that there is still a concern about the loss of the federal funds that will not be replaced and that the county has never historically replaced, right? And what I think we need to, what I think we need to be clear of is what were those funds paying for, what services, because we all know that during COVID, there was a serious loss of the capability of children to learn when they were learning remotely, or rather not learning remotely at home, right? And so we're trying to play a little bit of catch up on that. And I think we need to understand what that $70 million that disappeared, what that's paying to. Because I think at the heart of the issue of today's conversation and everything we're talking about, I think that that's what it is. I do see in those figures that the bulk of the cuts are in ELLs, special ed, and pre-kinder, which is highly concerning. That's the first thing. Then the federal money that has been cut and that's reflected there is not the 70 million that was mentioned to me. Mind you, it was over drinks, but we're talking, numbers here. I was quoted 70 million. That's not 70 million. So that's another issue. And let's talk facts. Historically speaking, I've been looking at the numbers, and over the last several years, telecommunications plus energy, it has not been 60 million. It's been 100 million. So that can be put towards the blueprint. If that's the case, that extra $40 million that we're talking about should be to fill in this gap that we just saw on that screen.
Right.
That's great. And just in explaining my vote, I mean, it took me a little bit to kind of center myself on this particular vote, but I have to say that in good conscience, I cannot support a bill where the bulk of the cuts are in English language learners and special education and pre-kinder. I just can't stand on that.
Well, so I'm going to hand it back over to Tanya so that she can ask you a couple of questions on pretty much how what she feels about that.
Yes, Delegate Taveras, I know that Delegate Harrison had mentioned that there was a request of the county executive to present to the General Assembly revenue losses that were due to waivers or subsidies that were given to developers. We were just wondering, was that report ever given to the General Assembly before this vote was taken?
If it was given, I'm not aware of it because I did not receive that. That's the first thing. And whoever that lady was, I agree with her 100%. She said what she said, and she meant what she said, and I still mean what she said.
We like that.
On um, I'll say this, that there was a conversation had publicly regarding that we were going to look at Texas bill was withdrawn, and prior to the ending of the session, I'll call it a mysterious bill, local, be approved without, I would call proper vetting, that was signed off on with the majority of the council vote. I did, according to the, because I did get up. I didn't just made because I thought it was my understanding. Sorry, my dog is acting up. I thought it was my understanding that we were going to put back some of those waivers provided to the University of Maryland, and we're not.
Wow.
They doubled down on that.
So when you say they put forth amendments that said that they were going to repay the waivers of the money that
and
was
I'll say this,
given.
And I'll say this: if that is my misunderstanding, I'll take it, because it was also it was so fast in terms of the circulation. Again, that this is not, it was not properly vetted. We had really no time to really ask counsel or anything like that. I could just tell you from what I read, and that could be a position that I might have misinterpreted. I'll just say that.
Right.
So I'll take. However, in my follow-up conversation, Delegate Jazz Lewis says that that was not what was intended there, rather that it was something with regards to a specific project that's occurring around the Blue Line corridor. That seems, basically, based on my conversation with him, sounds very attractive. So I'll give him that. But that particular section, with regards to the fact that studios don't need to be paid for within the inner beltway, looks like it still remained. And that's just what I saw quickly.
Wow. Okay, so right now, based on the final vote, and if the governor signs it, there will be a repeal of the telecommunication tax and the energy tax, so that the funds collected
That's
now
a done
go
deal.
to our
That's a
local
done deal.
government.
And that's a done deal with you have to understand that it was, again, the telecommunications tax, in addition to a 3.5 excess tax. So it could truly go up to almost, like, we're talking almost 11%
Whoa.
on every, if they were to pass it at the county level. So I'll reply to Levon's question in a minute, because I'm not sure. But this, what communications, one on telecommunications, one on energy, right? That's that means that blueprint. And nobody's arguing that, but I mean, the thing is that that money was always going to the school system. But
Yeah,
now
but there's a
it's
difference because it's going to the blueprint, and the blueprint real focus, if I'm correct, was to make up for the lack of per pupil. That money that was previously earmarked was specifically for salaries to pay for special education and maintenance, school maintenance. So there's still a deficit somewhere.
so exactly. So the question is, according to the county exec, she's going to give him the money she's going to give. Defendant had what they call the county exec. He had a dream, but he's getting more money of that budget, but not everything he
Okay.
requested.
Yeah.
Okay. And they were saying, alleged that those monies were to fill up fat cats in central office. However, when a representative and individuals that work closely with the school board, those funds were but actually were required lies. Therein lies
Right.
the county executive is only going to give what she's going to give, and it's because not just addition to the funds that were required
So,
under the blueprint.
well, let me ask you.
And
So, in other words, is
that's
this
the
like
problem.
using those funds to supplant the maintenance of effort? Is that close to doing that? Because the maintenance of effort is the maintenance of effort. You have to give that money. But now you're saying that you're moving these funds so that you're going to get your money for the blueprint. I mean, it just seems like they're
exactly.
commingling a lot of
So
things.
it's like paying Peter to pay Paul. So the thing is that at the end of the day, if we want to we cannot afford to fall short of the responsibilities under the blueprint, right?
Mhm.
So we've got to pay everything that's required under the blueprint. But something's going to have to give inside the school system through operations, maintenance. Something's going to have to give because they're not going to be able to fulfill everything they need inside the school system. And therein lies my problem, because if what he's saying, he was asked, what is he going to have to cut? He was asked that by Delegate Peña-Melnick. It took him some time to get those numbers crunched. It was provided that same day, that same morning. And the only person that saw those figures and could click with those figures quickly was me to say the cuts are going to come from ESOL, pre-K, and special ed, the things that I highlighted in that video that you just showed.
Which I guess, so in other words, Mr. House and his administration provided the data that the General Assembly asked for. The county executive did not, and it still passed to take this money.
Yes. And I'll say this, I think that there were errors in both parties. I'll say that, because not all the information was as quickly forthcoming as I would have desired it to be. For example, it took me at least 3 to 4 weeks, and you know that the legislative session is only 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
So for 40 days, that's half the legislative session right there, almost,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where I requested a summary of the budget year to year so I could calculate the budget that was 2 years ago, where I had a hand in developing and dictating, versus what they're grappling with now. And what I saw was that the county exec gave herself an increase of 10% at $3 million, an increase of 12% at $10 million each, $1 million each. So what that tells me is what I was doing, sorry, at 11 million, sorry. So $1 million each. So what operating my office at $350,000, each council member is now using $1.4 million.
Lord. Okay.
And so
Wow.
my question is, if we're still lacking in officers on the street, we still provided public safety $113 million in that gap, over 7% increase, and a total budget, and we provided a half a billion, and a total overall budget increase of 6.5% of $781 million. That's almost over $750 million. Okay, so my question is, why are you coming to us to go to little old ladies and whatnot and tap their landline on telecommunications tax to fund this? Right? There had to be some amendments so that wouldn't happen. But still, that means that now we're getting tapped on our iPad, on our laptop, on our cell phones, on our landlines, on everything. That adds up in a house.
It does. Let me ask you a question, because I know we're running a little short on time. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that Senate bill that was pulled back and that showed up in the last 48 hours?
No, the Senate bill was withdrawn by
it was withdrawn.
That was a validity. And to me, that was included. The concerns highlighted, the concern he highlighted was withdrawn, but the fix, in my opinion, the fix was provided in Delegate Tiffany Austin's bill. Tiffany Austin proposed a bill that I think was incredibly popular, that was presented early in November, and that did not go through. That bill was treated again within the last 48 hours. It was a brouhaha, and it did not go through. It got killed. In that bill, I think, to me, that bill was so important because it highlighted some of the crucial issues that are occurring in this county. It would have shaken up the core of the power base of this county. It dealt with 3 critical things. It dealt with standing to a mile, which I think is reasonable, if the person is domiciled. So if you live there and have vested interest and pay property taxes there, you got a vested interest in having a say in development around your area.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
Right.
So, and a mile is a critical, I think that's decent. So you're not coming from Accokeek trying to complain about Laurel.
Right.
That's fine. So I think that was a very good compromise. The second was the address of Zimmer to return the power back to the district council before the courts. I think after Zimmer and the loss of power to the county. I think that this bill was critical in restoring that. And then finally, the issue of validity periods. The thing is that we know who the majority of people are in this county that own land, commercial land and whatnot, or future projects, and who holds the land. And what happens is that there is a continual extension of all these rights continuously. Every 5 to 10 years, they're always on it, trying to extend. This would have nipped it in the bud. And allowed new ideas, new ownership, new. All of that was gone.
Okay. Oof. Delegate Traveros, we need you to come back. We definitely need you to come back, because I have one more question. I just want to try to summarize anything before our time is up with this segment. But so in other words,
no, on that one, you need to talk to the proposer of the legislation. I mean,
well, yeah, I'm thinking
I'm just telling you what happened
Austin,
and how I gave my vote in support of that legislation.
No, well, I'm thinking having you and Delegate Austin here. But question, so in summary from what I'm hearing from you, our county executive put forth a change or redirection of funds that are basically defunding some services at school. And from what you can see that was in this bill, and correct me if you said this didn't, I thought you said this passed, but we're looking at our council members now going from what you were able to do with $350,000, they're now asking $1.4 million to run their offices.
No, that's a done deal.
Oh, that's a done
what
deal.
That's what they've been running their offices on.
Oh, so they're just getting the extra funding.
No, they've been have that since. Let me look up the.
Oh, okay.
So out of the 2024 approved budget, that's what they've been running their offices on since the last time.
I think I got you. Okay, so they've had this increase in operating their offices, but at the same time, they're saying they have a deficit. But they've had this big
and
increase.
It could now be greater, and it could now be greater based on this year's budget.
Wow. Okay. I know we're out of time. Sherman, let me see if you had any questions.
The only question I had was
this is
about the federal funds, and pretty much you sort of answered that. I was concerned about the federal funds that you said we lost that could never be replaced, the county never replaced. That was sort of my concern.
That was the AARP type, the ARPA money, the CARE Act. Those are monies that came with the pandemic that have now disappeared and basically have they are no longer there. We're no longer in that pandemic mode, and hence those funds no longer exist.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Delegate Taveras, for coming on. We truly appreciate it. I had my drink, and I'm hoping that, you'll invite me next time to have a conversation over a happy hour. I would really appreciate it.
Well, on the 20th, I'll be presenting. On the 20th, we'll be at the Latino Democratic Club of Prince George's. We'll be presenting on the budget, all the budget. Okay. And so if you want to tap in, come on on.
Absolutely.
And listen up.
Okay. I definitely would do that.
Delegate Peña-Melnick and I will be presenting the entire budget. We usually do that at the end of the year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We truly appreciate you for coming on and providing so much information. We'll definitely be following up with you, and enjoy the rest of your day. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for your support for children.
Oh, and I want to say this. I know that you're going to go and switch on. I do want to give my little plug real quick. I do want to applaud Dr. Sephora for all the work she did. I know she's been historically on the right side of the issues that I've been on. And I do want to commend Delegate, not delegate, sorry. I want to school board member Madeline LaSalle, who's been also a close ally of mine. And I do wish if you could bring them as well in your podcast, I'd appreciate it. The same for District 1 candidates. I really would appreciate that. Thank you so much, because we we don't want to have more of the same. We want to be able to have real people who understand the issues, and it's not just about politics. I'm through with the politics. We got to get work done. Thank you.
Yeah, we have work to do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And yes, we will be having District 1 candidates on. We invited them and we hope that, they'll accept our invitation. All right, take care and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, that was
Wow.
very, very
It was
impactful, and we'll
awesome.
be
It was
unpacking that.
awesome. Enlightening,
And
yes.
Can I just interject? I'm off camera, but that $1 million, that just blew me away. We missed that one.
I
And
know.
I mean, do we have to do, I can go live. That's a that the $1 million, there was somebody that used to call the council members. They used to say, oh, they think they're junior county executives and they have their fiefdoms. And when I tell you that this administration has given this council more power than I think a charter legitimately allows for,
Right.
$1 million for
1.4 million.
Right. I mean, it explains a lot, and we missed that one, y'all. So let's move forward and learn some more good information. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much. And tonight, as mentioned, I am joined by our moderator who was so graciously accepted this invite to help us tonight. We wanted to make sure that we had some form of impartiality with this debate and that we wanted to bring in a third party. So who better to bring on than our very own Prince George's Alexis Branch, who is the host of Soul of the War. Alexis, thank you for coming on. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so
Thank
to
you.
everyone.
Welcome.
Yes. And we'll go ahead and let you get started. We have both of the candidates on tonight for District 5 School Board of Education. And I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, candidates. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2024 Prince George's County School Board Candidates Debate Moderator for this event. Today, we have two candidates vying for their positions on the local school board, each with their own unique perspectives and visions for the future of our schools. Before we begin, I'd like to outline the rules and the format for today's debate. So for timekeeping, each candidate will have a specific amount of time to respond to questions and make statements. The moderators will enforce the time limits to ensure fairness and efficiency. Candidates are expected to conduct themselves in a respectful manner at all times. Personal attacks, derogatory language, and disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. The moderators have the authority to enforce the rules, allocate speaking time, and maintain order throughout the debate. Their decisions are final. All candidates will be given equal opportunity to speak and respond to questions. No candidate giving preferential treatment or unfairly targeted. Questions will be routed among the candidates to ensure that each candidate has an equal chance to respond. Follow-up questions may be allowed at the discretion of the moderators. Candidates may be given the opportunity for a short rebuttal or rejoinder after another candidate's response, depending on time constraints in the moderator's discretion. Audience members may be allowed to submit questions either in advance or during the debate. The moderators will select questions that are relevant and appropriate for the discussion. Each candidate will be given an opportunity to make closing statements, summarizing their key points and vision for the school board. Closing statements will be of equal duration for all candidates. Is there any questions regarding that before I move on to the introductions for the candidates? No? Okay. Well, let me just say this before we do our introductions. I know how tight some of these debates can be, so just breathe, be yourself. I ran for the school board for District 7, so I remember just being in that position and like being so nervous on what, the possibility of not knowing something. Just be honest. No one is perfect. So we're just looking to figure out exactly who you are and, what you're bringing to the table and what's your ideas and what's your thoughts. It's a huge challenge in itself, just throwing your name in the ring. So applauds to both of you for even taking the time to do the debate and taking the time to run for office, because it really is one of the hardest things you can do in your life. So I applaud both of you, and both of you are Black women, and I love that. So shout out to y'all and thank y'all so much. And we're going to move forward with the introductions. I will now introduce the candidates running for the local school board. Each candidate will have up to 5 minutes to introduce themselves. Outline their part again with Mrs. Robin Brown.
To step up and become leaders. An example of that is when I urged my son to join SGA. I was met with a lot of resistance from him, and to the point where he said to me, well, why don't you run for something? And so I said, you know what? I'm going to take you up on that challenge. And so I decided to run for school board. On top of being a proud PGCPS parent, I am more than qualified for the position. I have extensive years in the PTO and the PTSO. I have been a PGCPS parent since 2014. I am a part of the Parent Community and Advisory Council, and I have been writing policy since 2018. My first being about the Flint water crisis in Flint, Michigan. I've also written policy for the Department of HHS. One of the policies that I led on was employment acquisition and ensuring that people had equity when they were applying to HHS. I currently write policy for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is also known as FEMA. And I'm in the financial policy branch. And so I do a lot of budget policy. I do a lot of admin control policies, making sure funding is allocated in the right places. I also currently I'm working on my doctorate in education in traumatology because I am concerned about the mental health for our young ones. I'm running for the family that moved to this country, as I am first generation American. My family hails from the country of Haiti. And I just think it's a wonderful opportunity to show our children what a parent looks like when they're a part of the school board. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have our next candidate, Dr. Please correct me if I say your first name incorrectly, ma'am. Zahora?
Zipporah.
Zahora. That is beautiful. I'm so sorry, Zahora. Dr. Zahora Miller.
Thank you again.
I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
Before you start, before your time starts, I just want to make sure we had your name correctly. Dr. Zipporah Miller?
Dr. Zipporah Miller, yes.
Thank you.
And I'm putting my clock here because I tend to talk a lot, so I want to make sure I'm on at the time. So let me know when my time starts.
Go ahead, you can.
Good evening again, and thank you so much for putting this on. I'm really grateful that there are opportunities for us to educate the public on the candidates for school board for many reasons. One, because I am an educator and education is about learning. And I believe that we should be lifelong learners. So thank you for putting this on. So who is Zipporah Miller? Zipporah Miller is first and foremost a wife and a mother. Family comes first to me. So I am a wife to Peter Miller, and I am a mother to David and Daniel, who both went through the school system. When I think about the school board, this is something that for me was intentional. It was very intentional for me to serve on the school board. I started as a teacher. I always wanted to be a teacher since I grew up. My dad wanted me to be a doctor or a mortician, and I fought him on that. I finally got my dream, and my dream was to be a teacher. I have been in the career of education for 30 years. And in those 30 years, at the beginning of my career, I set milestones. And one of the milestones was I would be a school board member because I wanted to see change in the school system. And so when you think about a school board member, I think about us, when we are selecting our doctors or who serves on the doctor's advisory board, we choose somebody with a medical degree. So why do we do different for our students? And I want it to be the change that our school system deserves. Therefore, when I say when it comes to our children, experience matters, I believe that we should have experience on various levels. On the local level, as an educator, on the state level, making policy, and on the national stage, making policy and looking at how policy impacts us on the state and local level. I have had all three of those. In addition, intentionally, I went to the University of Maryland, College Park, and I earned my doctoral degree in school system leadership. I did that because I knew that I needed to understand not just teaching and learning. I needed to understand how we're impacted by unions and bargaining units. I needed to understand how we shape policy and how policy changes or how policy should change what we're doing in the school system in order to advance teaching and learning. I needed to also understand all the other different facets of the school system and not just necessarily teaching and learning, because every piece is important. Community engagement, when it comes to transportation, when it comes to food and nutrition, when it comes to budget, all of those areas I took time to master. And I feel that I'm in a space now where I've started to make change as your current school board member. And the change that I started doing, I feel is nominal. And I've made some big wins, but I feel it's nominal. I feel that I can do a whole lot more. So I am urging you to consider me to continue on this board and to continue the great work that we have started as a community.
Thank you both so much for your detailed introductions. We really appreciate it. We will now move on to the questions round. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to respond to each question. I will pose the first question to Mrs. Brown, since we started with you with the introduction. And then we will rotate to the next candidate. Please keep your responses concise and focused on the question at hand. Okay, both of you, are you ready? So the first topic we will talk about is prioritization. How would you prioritize spending within the school district budget to address competing needs? Ms. Brown, this is for you.
Yes, I was writing it down to make sure that I wouldn't forget what was being answered. Okay, so that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. So a part of my platform is there's 3 things that I want to work on. We need to work on security, right? And when I think about security, I don't only think about physical security. I think about cyber security as well. As you all know well, our students' information was compromised. They were unable to get into the system properly. And it was a scare not only for the children, but as a PGCPS parent, it was very scary. And I felt like there wasn't a lot that was done to ensure the safety for our students when it came to cybersecurity. The second thing that I want to make sure that we invest and talk about is the policies, right? We've read through some of these policies and there are a lot of loopholes. There is language in there that does not fully take care of the issue. I think that's the best way to say it. I have spoken to a lot of teachers as well as a lot of students. They're kind of sick and tired of the handbook. And so as a board member, we need to address this handbook. The other thing that I also want to address is the allocation of funds when it comes to whether it's building a new school or fixing the schools that we do have. Bowie in District 5 is the only high school that's in District 5, and that is a concern because we have apartments and townhomes and more housing development that is within our district. And when you have an average class size of 38 students per one teacher, there's going to be a problem when it comes to even executing a lesson plan. And so I would definitely think that we need to prioritize when it comes to ensuring security, whether that's obviously physical security as well as cybersecurity. We need to make sure we take the time in addressing these policies that have loopholes, tightening up the language, allowing teachers to teach, and of course, to make sure that we allocate those funds to fix the schools that we have, but also consider building new schools because of the growing population that we have. Thank you.
Absolutely. I do have one follow-up question regarding your cybersecurity. So are you looking to like outsource that to public companies, or are you looking to do, or I'm sorry, are you looking to do private companies, or are you looking to do some additional training surrounding the current IT team that we have in place already?
Yeah, I think we should really put the money towards the current IT team that we have. We don't need to outsource. I think that when we start outsourcing, my husband is in procurement, and so sometimes when you do outsource, it is a lot more money than dealing with the people that you have. I think training is definitely something that they would consider, especially if we're going to be paying the people that we have. I have no problem either allocating that funding to get more additional help. You know, maybe it's a 2-person show, and I'm just throwing out numbers. It's not the actual number, but maybe they need more people on their team to assist in that. And so, yeah, I would keep it in-house.
Okay. I'm going to ask the same question to you, Dr. Miller. How would you prioritize spending within the school district's budget to address competing needs?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking that. So when you speak of the school system's budget, there's a capital improvement budget and there's an operating budget. I'm going to speak of the operating budget unless you want me to speak of both. So with the operating budget, this is something I already do. When the budget comes out, the first thing I look in the book was to see where are we spending to ensure it's impacting children first. And so as serving as the chair of the Academic Achievement Committee on our school board, one of the things that I've done is I've organized the team so that we can look at different programs, specifically mathematics now, because that's where our data is lagging. And then look at the data. What does the data say? What are the practices in place? What are the programs that are in place? And how is it? How's the implementation happening on all levels? And that's how you prioritize. Where do you put this funding? What programs do you keep? What programs do you need to reconsider? Because it's the role of the superintendent to do the programs. We write the policy, and I want to ensure that our policies are not impeding what would advance student achievement. So that's number one. Then also looking at the student, the teacher, research says, is the person who makes the most impact in student achievement. So we need to ensure, even in this time of a teacher shortage, that we are allocating funds so that we can have aggressive recruitment and retention efforts. I was able to advocate for funds so that we can ensure that we continue expanding our resident teacher program, which allows teachers who are coming into the profession in the non-traditional route, such as me, and pursuing their degree as they go along. I had to pay for my teaching degree as I was going through. But what we're doing to keep teachers now is help them pay so that they can focus on teaching and learning with the students. The third thing is ensuring educational opportunities, diverse educational opportunities for all students. Then I'll come on the second half, school safety. School safety encompasses two things: their physical safety and their psychological safety. So one of the things that happened at Bowie High School very recently, as a result of the incident that happened, and we heard about it in the news. I don't want to expound about it, but it was I asked the superintendent immediately as it happened. I'm on the phone with him and say, how did it happen? What happened? What are the things that are happening? And one of the things that I learned was it came in through a side door. So even though we had the security enhancements, we needed additional security. So I advocated for security alarms, which they do have now at every entrance of Bowie High School. The other thing is psychological safety. Students came from COVID. Tell me when I run out of time. Students came from COVID, really needed help in their social and emotional well-being.
You have run out of time.
Okay, so that would be on social and emotional well-being. Thank you for keeping me on track.
Of course. I'm sorry. And thank you so much for informing me of that as well. I'm writing the times down and I'm keeping track as I ask the question. But I do have two follow-up questions regarding what you said. So when it comes to competing needs, when it comes to these various different schools, what are some of the actual I would say, what are some of the things that you look at to determine, like, okay, this school over this school should get this need versus this other school when they're both competing for the same need? What would make that, decision for you? And then my second question is, I did hear you talk about security. And, we don't want children to feel like they're in a prison-like environment. We don't encourage the school to prison pipeline. So how can you make sure you have that healthy balance as far as school security, but not making a child feel like, okay, I'm in an environment where I feel like I'm in jail? And
wow.
I'm going to do 1 minute per question to respond to that, just briefly. I know that's a very detailed questions, but if you can just give 60 seconds for each of those, that would be great.
It is loaded, and you're giving me only 60 seconds, but I will try to get in 60 seconds. I'll start with the latter. When it comes to security, you are right up my alley. I never want someone to walk into a building. Unfortunately, we have to do it now, but walk into a building where they feel like it is a prison. So we were very, very conscientious as the superintendent presented the security features. I was very intentional about making sure that it's something that wouldn't make them look like they're going through metal detectors, and some things we can't avoid. So with the ones that they have, they can put what is it called, like their school paraphernalia on top of it and stuff like that as they're walking through. The clear backpacks helped, but the alarms are very discreet. And we have cameras in the building, but those are very discreet. We are not in the business of trying to make the school look like a prison, and you want the school to be a haven. And I want us to get back to the day when school was a safe haven. It still is. Unfortunately, with what is happening in society, we have to protect our students, but we will do everything we can to ensure that they feel it's like home.
Okay. And competing have literally
Go back
as far as
with the competing needs, and that happens, and when that happens, we're looking at equity and access. So where is the biggest strain? But you don't say one is better than the other. So how can we ensure that, if the funding is spent here, we have something else that's equitable at the other school, so that no one is left behind. So it's not a matter of like, we're going to get this first this year, and then you're going to get next year. It's how do we ensure that there's equitable allocation of resources across the board, so every child has access to the resources that are available to them. And it's a tough decision, but we grapple with it and try to figure out how we can make it work so that every child has equitable access to resources.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Brown, what factors would you consider when determining budget priorities for the upcoming fiscal year?
Can you elaborate? What do you mean by factors?
What factors, like, what are you looking at as far as making a determination for budgets? Are you looking at school attendance? Are you looking at how many people are on free and reduced lunch? Are you looking at the crime that has been going on? Maybe even talking about drug overdoses of kids. How many times has an ambulance had to come to each of these different schools? Bullying, that is a huge factor for me as a new mom. How would you prioritize, and what factors are you considering when it comes to the budget and determining budget priorities?
Yeah, so thank you for clarifying. That's a great question. One of the things that, of course, security, right? That's non-negotiable at this point. I again am a Bowie High School mother. I had to experience a scare with my child being in a dark room, not saying a word, terrified for his life because of a student's decision to be negligent and bring something that was a replica of a gun into the school. I was grateful that the school did shelter in place and allowed our students to make sure that they felt safe and that, you know, they followed protocol. So for that, I thank Bowie High School for doing that. It took a while for them to respond to us, which was a different issue, but I understand what that meant. Bullying is a huge problem. As we know, middle schools, elementary schools, high schools, everyone is receiving it. So the mental health services will be a wonderful opportunity. One of the things that I have gone through as a parent, my children have been bullied before, and I've been the parent that's clicked that button and did a bully report. However, the feedback that I got from my scholars was there was no resolution. It was as if they got two kids in a room and those students continued to argue and nothing was really resolved. And I got a paper that was sent home that said, oh, by the way, this wasn't really bullying. And so it was disheartening to see what that looked like. And so I do think we need to pay attention on making sure we have better restorative practices within our schools. Of course, free and reduced lunch is very important. As a first grade teacher, I did have farm students. And so when my farm students did not eat, they could not learn. And we know that there's a correlation with students who are hungry, who are unable to fully get into the education and instruction. Lastly, I definitely think we need to take a good look at our curriculum. I had mentioned in the meeting yesterday that I wish we had a metric system outside of MCAP, because if my child is in 8th grade, I don't find out the score until they are in 9th grade and what they're struggling in. And so I feel like we need to have a better metric system. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. You kind of hit on my question. I just kind of, when it comes to like statistical data or like financial data, do you plan on getting outside individuals to kind of digest that data for you? Or do you plan on doing that yourself, like digesting the statistical data and the financial data to make these various determinations? Do you feel like, you know, you're qualified to do that? Or do you feel like it would be more impartial to have an outside source come in and look at the data and give recommendations?
Well, again, as a federal government employee, I worked for the census. And so, as you know, the census is all about statistical data. The federal government has free resources. And because I was able to work with them, I look at data a lot differently working for the United States Census Bureau. So I feel confident that I'm able to understand the numbers and get additional help without compromising the funding for the schools.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Do you need me to repeat the question, or
yes, I was going to ask that. I'm sorry.
No problem. What factors would you consider when determining budget priorities for the upcoming fiscal year?
You are asking a lot of great questions with so little time, and they're loaded. So, I still look at the student first, and I look at the student from the aspect of students are in a school so that we can prepare them to compete in an era where now we are competing globally. We're not just competing within our community. So I look at achievement data, and as a chair of the Academic Achievement Committee, one of the things that I put in place, I think I talked about this earlier, was we look at the data, we look at the programs, we look at the practices, and I look at them from different perspectives. So central office says, here's what we put in place. Here's the curriculum, here's what we expect them to do. And then I look at it from the principal's perspective. How do you monitor implementation? Then I look at it from the teacher's perspective. How is it working in your classroom? And where we can, we also look at it from the student and parent perspective. That helps us know which programs are valid and working. So it's not just the numbers. So we look at qualitative and quantitative data. And many times you can get stuck at that quantitative data, but that's a student. And we need to look at every aspect of it. So that's one area. I look at teacher professional development, how the teacher's doing and implementing it. That's another priority that goes towards students. So we look at achievement data, and I look at different aspects of what would contribute to student achievement. Then I look at social emotional well-being, and you mentioned bullying. I was getting, again, looking at data, I was getting a lot of calls as a board member for bullying, particularly in the middle school. That was a trigger for me to say, one, look at the policy, two, where's our funding, and ask about our funding. I did both. This year, I advocated successfully so we can increase the funding for anti-bullying initiatives. But I did more. What I did was I said, we don't want just funding for anti-bullying initiatives and counseling service for the student who's being bullied. The way bullying will stop is we address the student also who's exhibiting the bullying behaviors. They need help as well. So we need to ensure that we're addressing both. And I also looked at the policy and started to strengthen the policy. It's still in the policy and governance committee so that the bullying policies can be properly addressed. So I looked at every facet of that. Then there are other aspects I look at. I look at transportation, time, okay, and food and nutrition.
Thank you so much.
You are asking loaded questions.
Okay, Ms. Brown, can you provide examples of past budget priorities you have advocated for and their outcomes?
Absolutely. So, as a federal employee, one of the things that we talk about is allocations all of the time, especially with shutdowns happening on a consistent basis, or us trying to prevent a shutdown. I think that's the best way to describe it. We really have to hone in and allow the lawyers to come in, OGC, to kind of talk about exactly what the funding looks like, why the funding looks like that. And I think we have to understand the needs, right? So when we take a snapshot of the entire year, what are places that maybe we didn't use as much money, right? Where are places that we may have been in a negative? So those are types of things that we had to definitely look into. And so an example of that is that at my position that I was in prior to the position I'm in now, we asked for 2 more employees. We like, the workload is way too much. We need an opportunity where we can kind of spread the workload because it's not getting done in a timely manner. It's not getting done in the way that it needs to get done precisely. And so with that, we were able to have 2 additional employees that were added to our team. And so we were super grateful for that. One of the employees was a contractor. And so we didn't necessarily have to hire someone who was actual full-time, but we hired somebody who was the full-time in the contracting space based on the budget. We always are in a position where we say, look, budget. Let's make sure we allocate these funds properly to make sure that we don't oversight or we don't do anything that's overdone. I think a lot of times people spend the money before they have it. And so we have to make sure that we're very careful with that as well. So yeah, that's a great example that I could say we hired 2 people, and I think that was super important, and the work got done in a precise manner, in a proficient manner. And so we were able to alleviate a lot of those tasks with other employees. So I was excited about that. Thanks for asking.
Of course, thank you. Dr. Miller, I'm going to ask you the same question. Can you provide examples of past budget priorities you have advocated for and their outcomes?
Sure. Thank you. Great question. I've named some of them. I advocated for the anti-bullying initiatives to increase the restorative practices with the schools, but I also asked for them to really look at and hone into the student who is exhibiting the bullying behaviors to ensure that we address that piece. So that will be in place next year. I also advocated for putting common rooms. That was as a result of looking at our data, and our data was showing that there are a lot of, disruptions in schools, but some of the disruption in the classroom could be a child just needs a space because they're emotionally breaking down or just needs a space. And what was happening is teachers were spending their money to create a calming space. So our teachers, we want to keep them. They work hard enough. Their money needs to go to their family. So I advocated for every elementary and middle school to have a calming room or a calming space. The third, where I oversee teacher recruitment and retention in our school system, in a neighboring school system. And I advocated for 4 positions, which we call conditional teacher support systems. And this was a pilot. And the goal was, we have mentors for new teachers.
Excuse me, Dr. Miller, I don't
We
mean
know that conditional teachers, which are teachers who come into the profession in a
Is anyone else getting that feedback, or is it just my end?
What about now?
Dr. Miller, you're going in and out.
Oh man. My Wi-Fi seems pretty strong. I'm not sure. I'll move up right now. I don't know where I ended, so I'll just kind of summarize the anti-bullying, the resident teacher program, the calming rooms, and I was talking about the conditional teacher support specialist. And the goal was to have additional support for teachers who have come into the classroom, but they have not had any teaching experiences. And their struggles are a lot different than a teacher who has come through the traditional route and they needed additional support. Those positions are actually well received in the schools, that different schools are saying, can we get some more? Can we get some more? So I'm going to continue advocating for additional positions. And it's something that I want to bring to Prince George's County Public Schools, because it has worked really well in terms of getting the teacher from someone who has never taught and accelerating their learning curve so that they become excellent teachers for our children.
Thank you. And I just want to put it on the record that I did give her a little bit of extra time due to her technical difficulties, but we are keeping it fair, and we did add on an extra minute for each response. Trust me, y'all, I have no stake in this game. Okay, y'all are not even in my district, so I have no stake in this game, and I am keeping this 100% fair. She had technical issues, so I just granted her just a little bit of extra time because we couldn't hear her throughout the entire time. Okay, so now we're going to move on to transparency and accountability, and we are going to go back to you, Ms. Brown. How do you plan to ensure transparency in the budget allocation process?
That's a wonderful question. I think one of the board responsibilities is to communicate with their residents, students, and staff. And so I think it's important to have these meetings set in place with residents, students, and staff. What I have seen in the past couple of months is a lot of lack of response, even for my personal, my delegates in my area. So being responsive is the first thing we need to do in order to alleviate distance between elected officials and the community that we serve. And so when it comes to accountability, that has a lot to do with it. I think communication also is something that's very big, right? Of course, we want to communicate to everyone. And so one of the things that I can say is I recently went inside of the classroom of my 14-year-old son who's in high school, and I sat in all of his classrooms. And I was able to have a snapshot of what teachers go through, what students go through. And there was a lot of information that I even found out about the curriculum that I had no idea would happen. There was a book that I was not really fond of. And when I contacted the teacher, she told me, oh, well, this is already embedded in the curriculum. And I said, well, how did we know this was even embedded in the curriculum? Nobody said anything to me. Nobody sent a letter at home that there was going to be racial epithets and cursing and drug usage in this book. And so I had to do research on my own to find out who was in charge of curriculum and instruction. And then I later find out that, oh, guess what? As a parent or a community leader, you can actually read the books prior to them being inside of the curriculum. And so being able to hear from your District 5 elector about things like that is super important. I think that allocation of funds is super important as well, right? When it came down to 1159, everyone can see how much money I received for this campaign. This is a self-funding campaign. I have nothing to hide. I have integrity and I have a government job that I need to keep. And so making sure that we lead with integrity and honesty, and making sure that if we don't know the answer to something, guess what? We're going to find out. And so I am definitely an advocate in holding people accountable for the things that they said they were going to do and for the things that they said they were going to produce. Are we always going to be perfect? No. But I do believe that allocating that time to be transparent and open and honest with your community members, students, and staff is a priority when it comes to accountability. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I hear that, Ms. Brown, protecting that clearance, okay? Okay. Dr. Miller, same question. How do you plan on ensure transparency in the budget allocation process? And also, in what ways do you feel like you've done so already?
Oh, okay. So, you know what? I'm just going to echo something that Ms. Brown said, because I think it's really important. You know, in seeking this role, it was really important for me to say it was going to be self-funded. I don't have, like, you know, because I don't work for the government, I don't have a clearance. But I feel that I want to be able to make decisions in the best interest of our students and our community. I don't want someone to come to me and say, well, I help fund you. No, I need to be able to be clear to make decisions in the best interest of our students and our community. So every dollar that has come to the Friends of Zipporah Miller campaign has been from friends and family. So I say that because I believe in transparency. One of my core values is integrity. I will not, for any reason, compromise my integrity. When I came onto the board, one of the areas that I found, and Ms. Brown is echoing what I saw, is the communication with our constituents. So what I did start doing is to ensure that I had a monthly newsletter go out. And in that monthly newsletter, I want all of the constituents, and I keep encouraging them to sign up. You know, the monthly newsletter, I outline what is happening at the board each month. When the budget public hearings were coming up, I need to hear from the public and need to hear from our constituents. I would send out, I need you to come to the public hearings. My first year, I didn't have that many. This year, the numbers increased. Another thing that I did was, when we were setting budget priorities, I sent out a Google form to the community and said, I need to hear from you so I know what the priorities are from the community standpoint. And I took every piece of that into account. I feel that in this position, I'm speaking for the constituents. So it's not my voice, it's our voice. And in order for it to be our voice, I need to hear from our constituents. So they need to sign up on the listserv so that you're getting the monthly newsletters. The one thing I did, expand on was, when the budget hearings were coming out, I would send out those even more frequently, because I know that's an important piece. The budget is big, you know, we need to know where our tax dollars are going. And I wanted to ensure that our constituents know we need you at the public hearing so I can hear from you. So in terms of transparency, it's making sure that I inform them of what's going on, not just from the budget's point of view, but what's happening. And then how am I spending my time? You know, where am I doing? What have I been doing? What have I been working on? You need to hear, as our constituents, what is going on. Last but not least, in terms of teaching and learning, the Academic Achievement Committee is an area which I've enhanced in terms of having parents really hear about what is the curriculum, what resources are available to you, what is happening, what should it look like. And then again, I said I listened to different perspectives. It wasn't just the central office perspective.
That's time.
I wanted to make sure from the parent perspectives that if this is what is being said, is this what you're getting? Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem. And I try to just be very straightforward with both of you, and both of you use very specific language, I would say, when it comes to donors, right? So you both said family and friends, but friends can be anyone. So are you accepting donations from unions? Are you accepting donations from developers? Because I don't know who your friends are. You know what I'm saying? So who can you clarify that? I'm sorry.
I can clarify. Not
Okay.
from you, not from developers, friends and family. Great question and great follow-up.
Okay. And as a recommendation, I would say when it comes to promoting and transparency, it seems like in our community, if you're not like in an in crowd and you really kind of don't know, you know, what's going on, you don't know about these meetings. So I would love to see like just how we see the billboards on the side of the road during campaign season. I would love to see some billboards on the side of the road to promote school board meetings or budget meetings, etc. Just a recommendation from little old me. But anyway, moving forward.
I was going to answer the question regarding friends as well and family. I didn't get an opportunity to. So again, my sentiments exactly. I am a PGCEA endorsed candidate, but they have not allocated any funds to me. So if you all look at the transparency, which is online, every single person that has ever given anything to me is a literal friend or family. And these are people from Florida, family from California. I have family in New York. And so that's primarily where it's coming from. But yes, even though I'm an endorsed candidate, I have not received anything from my endorsement. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's very good to know. I want to ask a follow-up question on that, but I'm going to wait till the end because we have so many questions to get through.
It might be on my end. You broke up.
Okay. So we're going to do this next question with Dr. Miller. So
Sure.
Community engagement. How would you address concerns or objections from the community regarding budgetary decisions?
You broke up, and I don't know whether it's my end, and it probably is because I think everybody else can hear just fine. So you said community engagement, but I did not hear the question.
How would you address concerns or objections from the community regarding budgetary decisions?
I listen and I hear where they're coming from and ensure that I hear from every perspective, because one individual's perspective is just as important as everybody else's, but I weigh each one in terms of how it impacts the whole system. And it's important that as I listen to their concern, I go back and look at the budget, look at the impact and how they spoke of it. And if it's seen a little differently, continue having a conversation. One of the things that I love is what I call courageous conversations. And I say at work, if I agree with everybody, then I'm in the wrong space. I want to be in a place where we have the best decision, not just a decision. And the best decisions come from where there are different perspectives and you're trying to weigh the different perspectives to come up with the best decision. And sometimes the opposition could be not necessarily we're going with the way that the opposition said it or the way we had it. We may be able to convene and collaborate and come out with something better. So I love it when people come from a different perspective. Many times when you hear me in meetings, I will say, here's an idea I have, here's what we're doing. And then I'll say, push back on me. And it took a while for my team to get used to that. But I really mean push back on me, because I don't want it to be an individual decision. We really need to see every perspective and make the best decision.
Thank you. And the same question for you, Ms. Brown. How would you address concerns or objections from the community regarding budgetary decisions?
So thank you so much for that question. Look, I always tell people when I speak to them, I'm not going to be able to wave a magic wand. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily how the job goes. However, we do have to show up for our community members. One being, a lot of community members, they just don't want a 20-minute conversation. They want a full breakdown of what the budget is and what it looks like. And so assuming that, hey, this neighborhood probably doesn't have a lot of kids. No, I know the amount of taxes that I pay. I know the amount of taxes that I'm sure Dr. Miller pays, living in District 5 in Prince George's County. And so people from even the oldest age to the youngest age, they need to understand how this works, because our taxes are going up. We're trying to figure out where this money is going, because based on the taxes, we need to see a reflection of our school system in District 5. And so I think I'm ready to hear the concerns, because I too have a concern as a parent of two PGCPS students. And so, and as you know, obviously as a homeowner, trying to understand, why is this funding allocating this way? And how come when the taxes went up, it didn't get allocated that way? And not really fully understanding how it works. I think people have valid concerns. They're putting their money where their mouth is, and they want to really fully understand the way this works. And so as far as concerns, I am a resident just like everyone else. I understand exactly the frustrations, but I also understand the opportunities for us to advance and to be a better District 5. So I'm excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Brown. And I'm actually going to head right back to you with this next question. Can you discuss your approach to assessing and prioritizing infrastructure needs within the district?
You said assessing and prioritizing.
Yep. Can you discuss your approach to assessing and prioritizing infrastructure needs within the district?
Yeah. So of course, you know, I believe a lot of that stems from going inside of the classrooms, understanding the way the classroom dynamic works when it comes to the populations, because we know as far as school boundaries are concerned, that's another part of what the board does as well. One of the things and the concerns that I would prioritize is our special education students. I feel a lot of time, because they are a small group of students, people don't really pay a lot of attention to them. However, they are the ones with the most need, right? And so there was a new boundary where I had a parent actually call me regarding her move from Rosaryville to Pointer Ridge. And she was concerned because of the special education opportunity that she gets at Rosaryville. She's not sure that she's going to be able to receive it at Pointer Ridge. And so I assured her that, number one, she needs to contact her school board member to see what that looks like. What does that look like as far as a special education program from Rosaryville to Pointer Ridge? Understand if they have the amount of resources. And I also want to encourage parents, please try and understand exactly the ins and outs of what's going on with your students in the classroom, so that you can be an advocate. I love our teachers, but unfortunately they don't have octopus arms. So they can't be everywhere and pull everything and do everything, but they need our support. And so that's something that I want to make sure that I put in. And so prioritizing our special education students, prioritizing our mental health services is a big deal, because as we know, oh, I'm sorry.
I don't mean to cut you off, Ms. Brown. I just want to make sure you're clear on the question. We're discussing infrastructure.
So, infrastructure. I'm so sorry.
Specifically, like special need equipment, like equipment.
Yes.
Rank. Okay. So can you clarify a little bit more?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for clarifying that for me. So I am an advocate of fixing our schools that we're in. The schools that we have are deteriorating. I've actually been in the classroom. I've seen the classrooms. I've been inside of the buildings. This is just to kind of add to what Dr. Miller was saying. You know, even as a teacher in the past, for me, I had to pull out of my own funding. And so making sure that teachers have the amount of student laptops, additional student laptops, because we can build a tree with the amount of laptops that students break on a consistent basis, but also having that part and having that opportunity to make sure that we safeguard these computers, to make sure that we don't have to continue to buy them over and over and over again. I think that we have to be mindful of the growth. So if that means we have to build another school, I'm an advocate for building another school because of the population growth. And so when it comes to the infrastructure, that is definitely something that I want to pursue when I'm in the office of District 5. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. All right, Dr. Miller, same question. Can you discuss your approach to assessing and prioritizing infrastructure needs within the district?
Sure. Let me first, before you start time, I'm noticing that it's probably on my end because as Ms. Brown was speaking, it was breaking up. So I think it's me. So if I break up, if someone can just say something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Prince George's County has so many schools, and I think it's like 43%. I had the number written down because this is one of the things that I looked into when I first came into the District 5 seat. And many of our schools are just in, they're old, they need to be rebuilt. And so we need to assess where we are, the way the funding that we get in order to build new buildings is not coming to us fast enough for us to fix the buildings that we have. So first, assessing the infrastructure and making sure that there's a risk analysis that is done and ensuring that the buildings that students are going into are safe. And so that is top priority. Every building that the student walks into must be safe. So a risk analysis has to be done. Then it's also about ensuring that they have the proper lighting, that they have the proper what is it called, whether it's heat or air conditioning, so that students are able to go in. Like there might be students who have asthma, and if it's too hot, so making sure that those are functioning. And there's some buildings that don't have it, and we as a system need to start looking at different ways in which we can fund so that we can get these buildings up to par, because it's unacceptable. There's no other way for me to put it. It's unacceptable. So we really need to figure out and find different ways of funding. And that is something that I am committed to do, because every child deserves to go into a classroom where they can say, this feels like a classroom, right? They shouldn't have to see, like one of the schools I went to when I was doing my initial visits, when I came on as a board member, I went to every school and they said, oh, look at the bucket of the leaking. And the first thing I do is I send an email to the superintendent, because that's unacceptable, So assessing the infrastructure, number one, starts with a risk assessment, making sure that it meets the student needs, and then analyzing cost analysis. Where will the funding come from, so that we can ensure that we're starting with the buildings where there is the highest need in the risk assessment, and then working our way down. We're in a situation now, honestly, that there's so many, Bowie namely being one, that we need a new building. We need a new Bowie High School,
That's fine. Sorry to interrupt, but and you were very clear. There was no breaking up during this moment. But I do want to chime in on what both of you were saying on this topic. I'm sorry, you guys, don't hate me, because I know we're on a time crunch, but I just want to throw these 2 cents in, and I'm just being very straightforward. I went to Gwynn Park High School. I remember sitting in classrooms where there was no heat in the middle of winter, and we sat in there for almost a week, without any heat. We're wearing coats to class, hats in class. And I've also seen the other side of the coin, because I went to school in Virginia for a little while. So I really boil it down to racism, quite honestly, and why our schools are in the conditions that they're in, and why they continue to be in that condition. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to hold, school board candidates accountable, but at some point we need people to advocate for our schools. Is it because we are a majority Black county that our schools are in these types of conditions? Is it because we are a majority Black county that our kids are reading from books that are 5-10 years old, and you go 30 minutes down the road and those kids will never experience anything like that? In fact, they have pools in their school. They're experiencing so much more than our kids, and just as far as conditions in the schools. But I'm sorry, I get really passionate about education, especially when it comes to the county that I grew up in, and I'm watching kids go to school. So I apologize, but I'm going to move forward. I did want to throw that 2 cents in that I do think racism is playing a huge part in the conditions when it comes to infrastructure in our schools. Next question, Ms. Brown. Can you discuss your approach in incorporating technology and 21st century skills into the curriculum?
So, that's a wonderful question. One of the things that I had the privilege of seeing is in the classroom is what happens when there's no internet, when the Wi-Fi runs out? Can teachers still teach? Right? I think teachers need to make sure they have a contingency plan because technology is not always reliable. I was in a classroom, in 3 classrooms. I won't say the teachers or where I was at, but out of the 3 teachers were clearly teachers for more than 20 years because just because they didn't have internet, they knew how to use the books, they knew how to direct, and they taught the entire 90 minutes of the classroom. However, when I was in the classroom with a teacher who was much younger and who relied heavily on technology, she was at a disadvantage simply because for 45 minutes, she was unable to teach. And so kids were doing hair, they were watching videos, all types of things were happening. And so as much as, yes, technology is super important, we live in a technology advanced world. I laugh because I was asking my child what the weather was, and what the weather, and so I am all about incorporating technology, but I also want to make sure that our students are well aware on how to pick up a book and how to read things properly and how to write properly in the event that Wi-Fi or in the event technology is not our friend, because it could be a great thing. It could be a great way to really advance our education, but it could also be debilitating if we are not exercising flexibility when things go wrong. So that, I hope that answers your question.
It absolutely does, and I agree. As far as it can be a crutch, I would say. When it comes to especially math. There's so many tools out there that allow children to just pull up entire worksheets, entire tests, and not saying I did, but just saying. Dr. Miller, same question. Can you discuss your approach to incorporating technology and 21st century skills into the?
Sure. So as a STEM educator and a STEM guru, this question is exciting to me. We're in a world where technology continues to emerge, and we can't even keep up with the technology. We're also in a world where, a lot of the jobs that we have are being replaced by technology. So when we shift to education, when we shift to education, we need to ensure that we're preparing students so that they can properly immerse into the technological immersed world. That being said, when Google came out, we were like, oh my God, the kids are not going to be able to think, but we made it. Students are still thinking. Some not, but they're still thinking. So here's the thing. ChatGPT is now here and it's not going anywhere. We have to be able to set policy, and I want to differentiate because the role of the superintendent is to be able to, he oversees the day-to-day operations. So he writes the curriculum, he enforces the curriculum, but we set the policy in which drives what he does, right? So when we're looking at policies, we need to ensure that we're setting policies that don't inhibit us preparing our students to compete globally. However, we need to also ensure that as we're putting these policies in place, that we're not taking away the students' ability to think. So any of us who have teenagers, I'm not going to say teenagers, even if you have a 2-year-old, the way that they're on their phone, they use it better than us. If I need something done, I'm like, here, I need you to da-da-da. So they know how to use this gadget to do almost everything, right? But I also need them to be able to think and figure it out. When we are using MapQuest, if MapQuest is not working, do they know, okay, when you look at the map, this is turned to your right and this is turned to your right, turn to your left. So I say all of that to say that we need to find a balance, and we're actually working on a policy for ChatGPT. And it's one of those things that we're going to go slow to go fast. We're bringing students in to help input. We're bringing higher ed with input. We're bringing business and industry to help us write the policy, because that's not something us sitting as a board. We're going to get community input on that policy. How is it going to be used to help advance teaching and learning, as opposed to us saying, no more ChatGPT in the classroom? Because I foresee that in jobs, they're going to start using it, and some jobs are going to get eliminated because of ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And thank you so much. You hit it right on the time too. Thank you so much. Just to add in a quick 2 cents, I definitely think social media is a problem when it comes to in the schools. So I would love to see if there was some sort of policy surrounding I don't want to say block social media, but block social media while the kids are in school, so that there is not, any type of interference with that. Because a lot of times these fights are coming from social media, drugs are coming from social media, and it really is a hindrance as far as a distraction when students are in the classroom. Just 2 cents. Moving on to equity and access. Dr. Brown, we're going to start with you. I'm sorry, Dr. Miller, we're going to start with you on this one. What steps would you take to address disparities in educational opportunities among different student populations?
Excellent question. The 3 facets that we focused on in academic achievement are as follows: mathematics, equity, and culture and climate. Why equity? To ensure that every student has access. And equity doesn't mean they all have the same thing. We need to ensure that we understand what each student group needs, and we have to meet them where they are. So during our academic achievement, and these are open to the public. They're virtual, so they're open to the public. During our academic achievement committee, we had the team from the equity office present the equity dashboard on how they look at data, but we didn't stop there. It's not just about analyzing and examining the data. It's okay, now that you've examined the data, then what, right? And the then what was we called in teachers and principals and saying, okay, so this is what the data is saying. Tell us what you're doing to address this student group and this student group, right? And sometimes when we look at the data, sometimes we're alarmed, but sometimes we find that we have things that, we are not necessarily advertising. For example, in the state of Maryland, I don't know if you know that our Black and Brown students are outperforming the other Black and Brown students across the state. Because we look at the data, we just look at it holistically and say, here we're at the bottom. But when we actually pull it and tease it out, and those are the things we do in the academic achievement committee, we actually see where we are and what we need to do. So what are we doing right there and continue doing? Then in advanced placement courses, the Hispanic population is outperforming other subgroups across the state. Why? So when we look at what are we doing right? But then we also looking at the fact that, well, then why are the students who are not in AP courses, why aren't they doing well, right? So that was a question that came out of looking at the data. So equity and access has to do with examining data, asking questions, but not just asking the questions, say, okay, now that we've asked the questions, then what? What are we going to do about it? Because we don't just sit there. If something is working, what are we doing well that we need to continue? And if we see a disparity in the data, what do we need to do differently? Doesn't mean it'll work the first time or the second time, but we need to do something differently in order to ensure that every student has access.
Thank you so much. Ms. Brown, we're going to ask the same question. What steps would you take to address disparities in educational opportunities among different student populations?
Yeah, so this is a great question. Thank you so much for it. So, of course, data is very important, and this is just to echo what Dr. Miller was saying. Data is super important, so we know what needs actually need to be addressed. I will say, as a first generation American and moving to this country, and obviously we're all seeing the news. There is an increase of immigrant families that are coming, so they're going to need the opportunities to get equitable education as well. Special education is going to be needed. IEP students also don't need to be forgotten about when it comes to spreading the equity. So when we think about ESOL students, so English as a second language students, we want to make sure that there's proper communication between the student and when they go home, and that there is equity when it comes to language barrier. Now, I know when I go on the Board of Education meetings, I'm only hearing Spanish. And I know we have a large Spanish population, but also in District 5, we have a large French Francophone population as well. So we have different families coming from French-speaking countries, and we want to make sure that we ensure that they understand the information that's given to them. When we talked about resources, right? A lot of the resources families do not know that we give in Prince George's County. And so these resources are going to waste. These resources are not being communicated, and that's an opportunity for education equity as well. So if I know that a certain resource is available for my child, this is an opportunity for my child to have a leg up, or an opportunity to advance in their math skills, English skills, science skills. There are resources that are available. Of course, when we think about parent engagement, we want to make sure that those parents who are part of the CPAC, so the Special Education Parent Community Engagement, also PCAC, right? These are organizations that express and tell people, hey, these are the opportunities you can have to make sure that we advance academic achievement for your family, and for your scholars. And so my big thing when it comes to equity, everybody needs to be involved. Everybody needs to understand where the resources are so that everyone has an opportunity to gain the best education they can get for their scholar. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just to, the next question kind of adds on to what you just said, Ms. Brown. So we're going to go ahead and go to you for the last question. What measures would you take to ensure that all students have access to opportunities for academic success?
You know, that's a great question. I always tell people my scholars have been in Title I schools, and been successful. My scholars have been in specialty schools and have been successful. And my scholars have been in general Prince George's County schools without specialty programs and have been successful. And I'm grateful for the education opportunity that Prince George's County Public Schools does have. I wish that we could get a better role on it to make sure, hey, we really need to get families involved. Family engagement is super important. One of the things that I will say is that I know surveys are taken out to kind of get an idea of what the families kind of think about what's going on with the schools and different things like that. We need to be mindful of parents who, or students who have different households that they go to, because sometimes one parent is receiving the information, but not the other parent is receiving the information. And so I know personally that there are times that I don't get the survey, or my scholar might get the survey, but I don't get the survey. And so there is a level of communication and marketing that we really need to work on as a school board to ensure that everyone actually has a voice, and so that we can measure equitable practices properly, so we can understand what these key point indicators are, because we don't know what all of them are, or when we think we know what they are, they're not a full scale of what it actually looks like. And so I think we need to start coming together and having the right hand. I hope you guys can see the right hand talk to the left in that sense. And so when I think about equity, and when I think about making sure that everyone gets that opportunity, I think of family and community engagement, marketing, making sure people know where the resources are located so that they can ensure that their scholar has a better education, regardless of what background they come from. And so, yeah, that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Awesome response. And Dr. Miller, we will close out with you on this final question. I'm asking the same question. What measure would you take to ensure that all students have access to opportunities for academic success?
Access to opportunities for academic success. Every child, one, learns differently. Every child has a different niche and things they love and things they gravitate to. And our school system, and I'm really proud to be a part of the Prince George's County public school system, has a really diverse array of opportunities for students. I have worked on the national level, and I've worked with superintendents from different school systems across the country, and nothing compares to what we offer here, be it our science tech, be it our French immersion, be it our Spanish immersion, be it, we have the CTE programs. I mean, a very diverse array of opportunities for our students. But here's the thing I found out, and I actually found this out in digging deep when we were trying to look at how we can save Pointer Ridge. This has been happening all my life, but I walked out of the house and I'm at the corner and our bus stop has, I'm going to say, at least 10 buses that come there, because one bus goes to Bowie, one bus goes to Eleanor Roosevelt, another bus goes to Central High School. That's high school, right? Then another bus goes to Ogle, another bus goes to Thomas Pullen, another bus goes to Judith P. Hoyer, and that's just middle school, right? And so there's buses going everywhere to different opportunities across the county. And it really had me pondering after we had been able to get Pointer Ridge to stay open, to say, okay, I need to start looking at, have we gotten to the place where is it still cost effective for us to do that? Or do we need to have more science and tech programs and more IB programs and more, other programs? Could it be cybersecurity programs? Do we need to have more pockets of those so that we're not transport? I don't think that the children mind being transported, but for example, the students going to Central, for example, they have to leave really, really early, right? My son went to Judith P. Hoyer Montessori. He had to leave really, really early, right, to get to his school. And so, the bus ride was one thing, but I think now it's also a matter of, if these programs are popular and these parents want them for their children, do we need to start looking at, could we have micro pockets where Bowie has an IB program and a science and tech program, so that you can go to your home school and still get the same programs across the board? So that's something I'm investigating and I'm committed to do.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. And just to add 2 cents in on what you just said, Dr. Miller, I think that it should even be considered to think about funding not coming out for transportation, coming out of the Board of Education budget, but actually coming out of a county budget surrounding transportation. And that money could be allocated towards, other things, enrichment programs, different things like that for the students, because transportation is a necessity. And I don't think it should have to come out of a school budget. So just my opinion. But anyway, moving forward, closing statements. We have now reached the closing statements portion of the debate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to deliver their closing statements. And we will begin with Ms. Brown, since we started with you.
Yes, thank you so much for the Citizens of Accountability and Governance. I really appreciate this opportunity. And thank you to our moderator. I know this is not an easy job, so I really appreciate you taking the time to do so. But I want to remind everyone that I'm running for parents, right? I'm running for the parents who want change. I'm running for the parent who wants to be involved, but doesn't know how to be involved. And I'm running for the parent that just wants a better opportunity for their scholars in District 5. I'm running for the student who desires to have a safe space to play and feel like their voice is being heard. I'm running for the family that just moved to this country because of the rich diversity that this county offers and wants to take advantage of the wonderful opportunity that our schools do have to offer. So I want to also remind everyone that on May 14th, early voting, May 2nd through 9th. Make sure you vote for me. But again, mail-in ballots have also come in, so make sure you vote, vote, vote. I will say when you vote for Robin Brown, remember you're voting for a leader in education and someone who desires to empower and amplify the community voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, Dr. Miller, your closing statement.
Thank you again. And in closing, I can't, Robin said it better, so I could say ditto in terms of thank you for putting this forum in place so that parents can be educated and community members can be educated on what we bring to the table. I will say this, you said it at the beginning. We're two African-American women, we're two African-American intelligent women, and I believe that we can do great work, and I believe in the school system. Why vote for Zipporah then? This is not for me something that I just decided I think, school board will be my next move. I actually prepared for it. I did that because I felt we needed a change on the school board. I have watched us go from an all-elected board to an appointed board, and then to an all-elected, and then to a hybrid board. And I've watched the ups and downs and the ups and downs. But I always pondered on, you know what? I wonder whether the medical profession goes through this, because they probably have doctors, which they do, on their board. And I wonder whether the legal profession goes through that, because they probably have lawyers on their board. So I said to myself, then how do we adequately prepare to become an excellent board member? There's no blueprint. However, I took the initiative to ensure that I educated myself and I put myself in spaces locally, in the state level, and nationally to prepare myself. I also set myself in terms of understanding the voice of the parent as a parent, but also as a PTA president. But also in any organization I'm in, you're going to find that I always serve on the education committee, be it whether it's a sorority, be it whether it's a social committee, social organization. If you look at my track record, I'm always on the educational committee, because education for me is a passion. Education for me is a commitment. Education for me is seeing our children have the opportunities that somebody invested in me. I've seen education from an international perspective. I am originally from Kenya, but I've lived in Italy, I've lived in Nigeria, I've lived in the United States, and I've gone to schools and I've seen different ways of teaching and learning. And I believe that that experience also allows me to see a way in which we can integrate not just what we do in the US, but what we do internationally, because we are preparing students to compete globally. Mm-hmm. I love this position. I love what I'm doing. I eat, I sleep education. My husband sometimes is like, we got to let it go at some point, but it's me. So I ask that you vote for Zipporah, but you vote for Zipporah because of what you see in her credentials and what she can bring to District 5.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you. And thank you for your participation. I think showing up speaks volumes in itself. So thank you for taking the time to educate our audience here and the audience that chooses to tap in and view this debate later on. So thank you both so much for joining us today. And remember to cast your vote in the upcoming election to make your voice heard. Have a wonderful evening, and I'm going to pass it back to Mr. Sherman.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. And again, candidates, I just want to say I appreciate you all for coming on. This was a very robust, discussion, debate forum, however we might want to present it. And you guys definitely highlighted a lot of things and, answered the questions, in a fashion that you needed to. But I will say you missed one crucial point. And it's from one former candidate to you all. You forgot to let us know how to reach you. So can you go ahead and do that, please?
It's like you know everything, and then all of a sudden that's the one thing. That's so funny.
Yeah,
so
I didn't want to let you guys miss this opportunity. So make sure you go ahead and do that.
Thank you, Sherman. So you can go to www.robinbrown4pgcps.com. You can email me at robinbrown, ROBIN, like the bird, brown like the color, robinbrown4pgcps at Gmail. I am responsive. I love responding to people. Send me your concerns. Send me things that you want better for District 5. I would love to hear your voice and invite me to speak. I love speaking. I love to get to know people. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Go ahead, Dr.
Oh, I was waiting. I have two cameras and I just noticed I'm looking at the wrong direction. I apologize. I hope it wasn't like that the whole time. But you can reach me you caught me off guard. We were having so much fun, right, Robin? Just sharing our heart and sharing what we can bring. You can reach me at ZipporahMiller.com, www.ZipporahMiller.com. You can also reach me at Zipporah Miller, the number 4, BOE.com. Wait, actually, no, that's not it. Zipporah Miller for start over.
It's okay. Take your time.
I know. You have me tongue tied because I'm not used to touting me. It's about you guys. Okay, Zipporah for BOE at ZipporahMiller.com. Zipporah for BOE at ZipporahMiller.com. And you can reach me for that. If it is a constituent issue, you can reach me on the Board of Education website.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Thank you all for coming on. I truly appreciate it. We truly appreciate it here at the District County Board of Governors. And best wishes to you all. Good night and take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alexis.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah,
And
Alexis, thank you so much.
Job.
You're wonderful.
Thank all of you for having me. I hope I didn't talk too much. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. And again, thank you, Alexis.
Thank you.
All right. Again, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Does anybody, one of my co-hosts, have anything to say before we close out? Or
Sherman, I just want to thank you for coordinating this, our guest tonight and the debate, and for having Delegate Tavares on. So thank you.
Yes, great job. I'm grateful for the opportunity to see our conversations and our vision come to life. It feels good. It helps to know that we are on the right path and doing the right thing. Sometimes you feel thankless. You feel like, why am I no time and resources? And then you remember that, when you have purpose, you have to fulfill it. And so thank you, Sherman, for pushing us to the next level. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your skills. Your late night, early day calls, middle of the day calls, text messages. We have made it over the first one. And I just personally want to say to our District 1 candidates, who I left a phone message for each one, be polite and return the call.
Derek, did you have anything?
Absolutely. Sherman, I would like to thank you for your leadership in setting up the template and the platform for these candidates to share with us who they are. Miss Alexis Branch, thank you for moderating for us and to the public. I think it is very, very important in this day and time that you engage and you get involved in what we're doing in terms of giving these candidates platforms to express what they will do to move our school system forward. It's good to see people under pressure to a certain degree and being asked tough questions, because that gives you an opportunity to see if they have any fight in them. Do they cower down? Do they pronunciate? Do they answer with intelligent intelligent answers that really are pertaining to the questions? Because that is very, very important, because they are making major fiduciary decisions for our children. Basically, it's really not even about us. It's about us. We're older, but we're trying to educate the new generation. And if we don't get more
Oh, they got to
involved,
take care of us.
yes, exactly.
Exactly.
If we do not
That's my
get
concern.
involved with the people that we are electing and voting for to these boards and hold them accountable, then somewhat we have to blame ourselves. The Citizens of Accountability and Governance has taken the first step. So those of you who might be nervous to be out on the forefront, come on and join in. I mean, let's get it done. Prince George's County Public Schools and Prince George's County, period, can be great, but it cannot be great if we do not engage.
Yes.
Absolutely. And thank you again once more for all the love and admiration. With that said, on behalf of everyone here, thank you so much for joining us tonight on CAG Chat. We hope that we've inspired you to take action and speak up when you see something that needs accountability. Remember, in all thy getting, get an understanding. Good night and stay informed.
Good night.
Good night.